Hey guys, how's it going? A couple of years ago, I was 49. I had a routine doctor's visit and I found out that I was type 2 diabetic. Because I had had a couple of friends that had strokes from type 1 and type 2 diabetes, it scared me. I didn't know what to do. I was confused. I was nervous. I'm naturally anxious anyways. So I immediately went to YouTube to try to figure out what other people have done, what they've gone through. And this is my contribution to that. So I hope this helps. So about a week after my doctor's appointment, I got a call from the nurse. And the nurse said, hey, your blood work came back and it turns out you're type 2 diabetic. So my first thought was, well, she's specifying type 2. I thought just diabetes was diabetes. So I asked her, well, what does that mean to me? Like, what does that mean? She said, well, stay away from sugary drinks. But I had a feeling this wasn't the complete story. I had a feeling it was more than that because of how serious this disease is, right? Or can be. So I decided to go on and do my own research. And I immediately started making healthier lifestyle choices. I didn't know much at the time, just what I could Google really quick because I was out of town driving back home. So I did what I could. I stopped and I threw away all the junk food I had in the car, all the snacks I had gotten. And I bought a big bottle of water and a thing of mixed nuts. I didn't know what else to do. And then when I got home, I did a little bit more research. I did have a doctor's appointment a couple of weeks after that, and the doctor was supposed to go over everything with me, but I didn't want to wait 2 weeks. I wanted to get started right away. So yeah, the first thing I did was I obviously told my family, and I did a crap ton of research because I had no clue what I was getting myself into. So after immediately doing my research and learning the difference between type 1 and type 2, type 1 is basically your body doesn't produce enough insulin. Type 2 is basically your body doesn't listen to it. The example that was given to me was, imagine your wife keeps asking you to take the garbage out, and she asks you all the time, and eventually you just kind of ignore your wife saying, hey, the garbage needs to go out. That's kind of what your body does to insulin, kind of, if you're type 2. So a couple of weeks after that, I did have a doctor's appointment, and the doctor prescribed me a couple of different medications. I can't remember what they are now. And he prescribed me something called a Libre. There's different types. There's, different names probably, but it's basically a sensor that goes on the back of your arm and it monitors your blood sugar in real time. And then you can wave your phone over it and it'll tell you what your blood sugar is. But the problem was the doctor didn't tell me like anything. He didn't tell me how to install it. He didn't tell me install it. It makes it sound like I'm a robot or something. He didn't tell me how to put it on. He didn't tell me what to look for when I did. I had no clue. And so I kind of went to YouTube, kind of learned how to put it on. And I started reading this thing. And but it was giving me numbers, but I didn't know what the numbers meant. He never told me that much. So I called the nurse. And I said, hey, I have a problem. I have this Libre, but I was never told what numbers to look for. I don't know what they mean. She said, well, basically, you don't want your blood sugar to be above 180 2 hours after you eat. But the problem was I wasn't seeing 180 at any point, and I told her that. She said, well, what numbers are you seeing? Well, keep in mind, I've already made health choices at this point. I had already increased my fiber intake, cut out all the carbs, that kind of stuff. So I told her, the highest I've seen is like 154. She said, oh, wow. She said, and what medications are you on? I said, I can't remember. He prescribed me 2. She said, well, don't take the second one. I said, I haven't, because the pharmacy was back ordered on it. I haven't even gotten that yet. She said, oh, wow. Okay, well, the one that you're on, just cut it in half. So immediately I went from 2 medications to 1 and then cutting that medication in half. Okay, so now that I knew what my Libre did and I kind of knew what to do with it and stuff, it gave me a chance to see how different foods reacted with my blood sugar. And that's kind of what it is. That's what it's supposed to be for, right? So once you get your Libre, that's when you start experimenting with your diet. That's when you experiment with keeping that sugar spike down a little bit. So what I did was, again, I went back to YouTube and I started, now that I had a little bit more knowledge, I knew what I had, I knew what type 2 meant. I knew what my medication was, and I knew what my Libre was, right? So now that I knew more of the scenario, then I went to YouTube to research the different elements of what applied to me. And I found this channel called Type 1 Talks. Not to be dramatic, but this channel changed everything. I came across it because I was trying to look at how to put my Libre on. I didn't know how. And he has a fantastic video showing you how to do it. He also has a fantastic video where he actually eats certain foods to show you how it interacts with his blood sugar. He talks about things to eat, things not to eat, things that he's the one that introduced me to the element of it's not enough to just lower your carbs. You have to make your body more insulin sensitive at the same time. Otherwise, you're not really helping the problem. Just by lowering, that would be like your house being dirty and you just like buying less styrofoam containers from fast food restaurants without cleaning up what you have. You know what I mean? It's kind of, if you're not making your body more insulin sensitive, you're only fighting half the battle kind of thing. And his channel, again, it's Type 1 Talks. I highly suggest you go to his channel. If you're watching this video, you probably just got told, and he's gonna be that kind of welcoming group, that welcome mat for the idea. He kind of has a calm presence and lets you know that everything's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be okay. And he'll explain all the ins and outs of it. And I can't recommend his channel more. So definitely go check his out. Okay. So at this point, here I was, armed with all this knowledge. I knew and understood what I had. I knew and understood what I was on. I knew and understood my Libre. I knew and understood what my diet had to be. I knew and understood what my diet couldn't be. But there was a problem. I have a wife with 3 kids, and they are not diabetic. I am. So I had to be realistic with myself, and I had to, I decided I had to treat this like a substance abuse, right? I mean, I've never, you're not going to believe me, but I've never drank, I've never smoked, never done drugs. Yes, you can call me a loser. So I had to treat it. I've had substance abuse issues in my family. I've had alcoholism in my family, and I had to treat it as such because I knew it was a legit addiction, right? And so part of that is it's not that I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want access to it. I didn't want to sneak some when nobody was looking. I didn't want everybody to go to bed and me go, ooh, and go out in the kitchen and try to eat it, right? So me and my family got together and we decided the best course of action would be for them to take their food, their junk food, and keep it in their rooms, right? Everybody had their own Tupperware container to keep their stuff in. Ziploc bags, Tupperware containers. They put them in a Ziploc bag in the Tupperware, you know what I'm saying? That way I didn't have to look at it. I'm not about to go in their room and get it. And that helped tremendously because then all the stuff, when I went out into the kitchen, I was relatively sure within reason that there wasn't anything I shouldn't have. So that was a huge help. Another thing that helped was something I've never heard anybody else call it this, but I call it this. I call it staple foods, right? I had to have food in the house because I knew I was going to have moments of weakness where I didn't feel like preparing anything. I didn't feel like making a salad. I didn't feel like thinking, right? So I tried to find staple foods that I knew I didn't have to think about. And my specific staple foods were pumpernickel bread, and I did another video where it was tips on how to lower your A1C and stuff. Pumpernickel bread, because that makes your body more insulin sensitive. Cheese. I eat Nutri-Grain protein bars. I think it has like 2 net carbs or something. I can't remember. And then like water, unsweet tea. Every once in a while I'll have a sugar-free Monster, the white Monsters. And then I try to keep salad stuff in the house, specifically spinach instead of lettuce because it has more nutrition. And then apples. And those are my staple foods. Apples, salad stuff, high protein bars, cheese, and chicken salad and pumpernickel bread. I try to keep those in the house all the time. Even still, I've got probably 15 cans of chicken salad in the house. That way, when I had those days right where I was, tired of it, I was over it, I didn't want to think about it, I go in the kitchen. It's not, because you get hungry sometimes, you just want to eat something. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's easy to fall back into bad habits, but if all the really convenient stuff in the kitchen I had was safe for me to eat, it made those days less risky. So, yeah, so that's still to this day, that's what I do. And I even carry some of that stuff with me too when I go places. Now that I had everything under control, I had my diet planned out. I understood everything. I had all this knowledge. The next thing I did just to set myself up for success, and I'm not saying you got to do it this way. I'm just saying this is what I did. The next thing I did was I did almost like a reverse intervention on myself. Again, I can't stress enough how much I treated this as a substance abuse, because for me it was. I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying you got to admit it. I'm not saying you're in denial if you're saying you're not. That's not what I'm saying. For me, 100% I was addicted to junk food. That's how I had to treat it, right? So the first thing I did was almost like a reverse intervention, right? I sat my kids down with my wife and I explained to them, look, this is what's going on. This is what I found out. I explained to them the risks. My oldest son asked, well, what are the risks of this? I said, well, it can cause tissue damage. My friend Pablo, he lost his big toes from diabetes. He also had a stroke from diabetes. Another friend of mine, his wife had a stroke from type 2 diabetes. You can lose your vision from it. You can do there's a lot of side effects if you go unchecked with this. And he said, okay, so they understood the risk and they understood how serious it was that I get this under control, right? And I told them, I totally empower you guys to call me out if you don't think I'm eating something I'm supposed to. And I empower you to question things. I empower you to make suggestions. Hey, do you think you should be eating that? Maybe you should be eating it. And I empower you to go behind my back and tell your mother if you think I ate something I wasn't supposed to. I want you to do these things. I want you to keep me accountable, because part of this is my promise to you as my kids that I'm going to take my health first, because it means more to me that you grow up as long as you can with a dad. My dad died when I was 13, than it does for me to be able to eat junk food. That's an easy decision. You know what I mean? Kids win every time. At least they should. Okay, so I did have subsequent doctor visits after the first one, right? Your A1C is about a 90-day snapshot, right? And so some questions I had about my A1C was, okay, like if I eat junk food the day of my blood work, would that have affected it? No. It's a 90-day snapshot. That's not going to affect it. It's not a standing glucose level. It's A1C. It's different. So after 90 days, I went from about 213 down to about 187. Doctor was surprised. He was pleasantly surprised. He's like, oh, wow, your weight is already better. He said, how do you think your A1C is? I said, I have no clue. And he said, you started in with 10, but now it's at 8.2. I'm like, okay. He said, that's a 17% improvement. That's great. And he said, and that's on only half of your medication dosage. That's amazing. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. He said, I'm going to keep you on the half dosage and I'm going to see you again in 3 months. I said, okay. So I went after 3 months. My weight was then at I think 72, something like that. So another big improvement on weight. They said, how do you think your A1C is now? I said, I don't know. No clue. He said, your A1C is at 6.6. He said, so officially you're now pre-diabetic. You're no longer diabetic. I'm like, oh, nice, good. And he said, yeah, so I'm going to try to take you off your medication. Because if you're making this much an improvement on half your medication, just on diet and exercise, lifestyle changes alone, I want to see how you do without it. I said, okay, cool. So after 90 days, I went in and my A1C was then at 6.2. And my weight came in at about 165 pounds, which I'm still at now. I'm still at about 165. And in my subsequent visit after that, my A1C, the lowest it got was 5.4. And he told me, he said, I would start introducing carbs again because you're getting to the point where you could run into hypoglycemia. At times, your blood sugar might plummet, which it does sometimes. But so now I'm at 5.5. I started introducing carbs back in the form of citrus fruit, or whole grain bread instead of pumpernickel bread. But I find it kind of difficult introducing carbs back in because I like how I feel. I like being a lower weight. I'm 51 years old and I'm in, better shape than I've been in a really long time. I don't get tired walking around. I don't get tired playing with the kids. I don't get tired playing with the dog. I feel better at work. I recover quicker when I'm sick. Yeah. But a side effect that you're going to experience when you go through this, not if, but when you go through this, is you're going to have people coming up wanting to know your secret. Hey, how did you lose so much weight? And they're not going to want to hear it. They don't want to hear that you ate right and you exercised and you cut things out of your life. They want to know that, they want to hear, oh, I soaked my feet in Epsom salt, or some frivolous thing that's not going to cost them very much time or energy. But be that example. Be the example that you could be. Be an example for your kids. If not for yourself, for your wife or your husband or your kids. And if you're single and you don't have a wife or husband or kids, be an example for your coworkers. Be an example for your neighbor. If you don't have very many friends, if you're reclusive or you're kind of you have like social anxiety, then start a blog where you don't even have to put yourself on camera and just talk about your story. Start an Instagram account and just put text on the screen and talk about what you're going through and everything, and just try to help other people. Be an example. You know what I mean? Feel better about yourself. Because this kind of stuff affects you mentally. It affects you physically. Like, you'll be in a better mood. You'll be, have less anxiety, that kind of stuff. So, I hope any of this helps. I'm a very, very nervous person, and the hardest thing for me to do is first go to the doctor. Especially if you think you have something. Oh God, that's the worst. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. I was straight up, a typical lunch for me was a couple of packs of king-size Reese cups, a giant Slurpee, and then probably a bag of chips. And that was, I thought, nothing. Breakfast was a couple of Little Debbies and a Mountain Dew. That was breakfast for me. And that was every meal of the day was like that. And then dinner would be like fast food, like McDonald's. Like, that's how I ate all the time. I ate like a 12-year-old that just got their allowance all the freaking time. And I use the word addiction with junk food. Seriously, that's what it was. And if I can change, anybody can change. So if you have any questions, or if you need you can do it, feel free to comment. Again, go to Type 1 Talk, the YouTube channel. He's amazing. He's great. But also tell your family, explain your weakness. Tell them you need support. Let them help. And I hope any of this helps. If not, if it doesn't help, okay, I'm sorry. If it did help, great. Like I always say, if you like what I do, you don't have to decide to subscribe right away. Just watch another video. That's fine. Or like it. Doesn't matter. Or don't do either. I don't care. I just want to help people. So later.